Well, no.
¿Qué pasó, mano?
But it's because
Chaboleta.
because
Chaboleta, mano.
mucha boleta, mano.
Qué
Hello,
porquería, mano.
Hello, teacher.
Hello, teacher.
Teacher's back.
Okay, is the sound okay?
Teacher, I don't know, but I think that you're having the same problem in the area.
Okay. Give me a second, please.
No problem, teacher. Take your time.
¿Por qué tú le quitas el forro a tu celular?
¿Eso qué es? No me tienes ahí en la mano. Guárdame eso, ¿qué hacía eso ahí? ¿No es que la niña se lo puede tragar? Guárdalo en tu mesa de noche.
Hello, compa.
Perdón, no sabía que se estaba escuchando.
The
Tranquila.
teacher
Don't worry.
I'm going to try with my camera off and see if it works. Is the sound better now?
Okay, teacher.
Much better.
Well,
Yes, it's much better, yeah.
Good, yes. You don't get interrupted.
Okay, good. I was telling you that tonight we're going to discuss about the processes of memory and learning, the parts of the brain that are in charge of memorizing information and learning, and the neuromyths that are about how we learn and how we memorize information. Those are the readings that you had last week. I would like to know if, Anna, do you remember any of the information read last time?
Teacher, me.
Or me.
I wanna start.
Well, we have a lot of information, so everybody will have time to
Okay,
participate.
teacher.
Okay.
Anna?
Teacher, the last time
Anna,
was about neuroeducation, yes?
Yes, and neuromyths and the parts of the brain that are in charge of memory and learning. Do you remember any myth about how people learn and memorize information? I'm going to show you some pictures to help you recall the information.
Teacher, if
The colors, picture.
Anna?
I'm sorry.
Okay, here we have a myth related to brain capacity. Do you remember what that myth is about?
Okay.
Teacher, according to are you asking to Anna or to anybody?
Yes, please just give Anna the floor, and then I will give the other students the time to participate.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Don't worry, that's okay. Anna? Okay, we have different neuromyths about brain capacity, about the information that children can store before they are 7 years old, also about music and the influence of music on students' capacity to learn, other about the hemispheres and how they work.
All right, and left me first, yes.
Okay, do you remember details about those myths?
No, teacher.
Teacher, I do.
Okay, well, if you remember any information, Anna, please raise your hand later, okay? Fernando, what do you remember about the reading?
Okay, very good. There are the reading mentioned, like the problem is that many teachers are eager to implement their teaching with new methods and practices, but and they're trying to improve their teaching practices without preparation on how to evaluate these programs. I read about 3 different myths. Number one is due to the fact that children have a greater synaptic proliferation during their 2 first years of life, it is thought that if their brains are flooded with a lot of information and vocabulary and isolated data, concepts and memorization of facts, when they reach the youth or adulthood age, they have superior cognitive abilities than their partners. who didn't use these methods. That's number one. The other one was the Mozart effect, that for some time it was thought that listening to classical music composed by Mozart had the effect of raising the learning capacity in children. And the other one is one from the brain, right brain, left. It is created on the proposal that the children should be taught after being qualified as children born with predominance of the right hemisphere and left hemisphere.
Okay, but let me ask you a question. What about the music, Mozart music? What is the myth about it?
Okay, very good.
Does it help the students to learn? What happens there?
Well, it says that it facilitates the abstract reasoning of university students, and also thought with other music or the reading of an attractive passage from a book, among other methods. But later studies show that listening by itself and alone doesn't produce a clear and evident benefit. So the myth about that young children listen to Mozart is a myth, because it doesn't produce anything to children.
Okay, so the myth is related to classical music and Mozart music. So
Yes.
that type of music relaxes people, relaxes children, but it doesn't mean that they are going to learn. What about playing an instrument? What does the reading say about the benefits of playing an instrument on the changes in the brain and learning capacity?
Okay, very good. Well, I read that the brain uses all of its capacities 100% every time it faces problem solving, learning, or memorization processes. I know how to play an instrument, and after I read the lecture, I could say that playing an instrument, it opens your brain capacity. Playing an instrument gives you like more options and allows your brain to be able to think more and to use more your brain capacity.
Okay, so um, that's all. I mean, that's part of the information that is in the readings. Somebody else wants to comment about the benefits of playing music on brain?
Yeah, teacher, can I
Janet?
say something?
Yes, yes.
It mentions also that when children play an instrument, that improve certain kinds of mental tasks. So basically, children are able to perform different tasks faster, even faster than children that don't play musical instruments.
Not exactly that. What else do you remember? Or if somebody else who remembers information about benefits of playing an instrument on brain's capacity to learn or brain's development. Okay, Juan David here wrote that the Mozart effect is false. However, the cognitive benefits of playing an instrument were demonstrated, since these activities, sensory and motor areas, simultaneously affects the general ability of the child. So when we develop the ability to play an instrument, we are developing the brain capacity on sensory and motor areas. And if we develop those areas, so other tasks that are related to those parts of the brain will be easier. Here we have helping, which affects the general ability of the child, helping them to better understand the language, better attention, perception, and discrimination of stimuli, the memory of work, and motor control on our behavior. So playing an instrument has benefits on our behavior related to motor skills and on our ability to memorize information, to perceive different sounds, and to pay attention. So people that are good at playing an instrument develop those abilities. While
Teacher,
people
yeah.
while people who listen to music, classical music, don't develop those abilities, but they just have a moment that they can be relaxed. Probably they can concentrate more, but it doesn't mean that the brain, the abilities, I mean, it doesn't mean that listening to music is going to help them change their brain abilities or get other abilities that are the ones that are mentioned if somebody plays an instrument. Diana?
No, I was when I was doing the homework, I also had the chance to have a look magazine that it was kind of a complement to the information that was in the reading. So and it's also related to what happened to kids when they develop the art or when they play a musical instrument. And it says that there was a study that mentioned that even the social emotional skills of the kids can improve. For example, the kids were able to socialize better with other kids around them, and they were able to manage their emotions in a better way. So the kids stay more positive and they experience more rewarding relationship with others. So it also helped the kids with their emotions or in the development of their emotions.
Okay, exactly. That's related to arts. Playing an instrument is related to arts. So the thing is
Teacher.
that, yes,
And languages teacher, I think, because I
I
can
just
say
wanted to say something.
experience
Carlos?
because
Alexander. Alexander?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say that, I mean,
sorry,
if you,
I studied art. Okay.
go ahead, no problem.
Okay, I gonna go on. Okay, I started guitar like 5 years ago, and I can notice that when I started learning English, I can listening was very easy for me. Yes, because even when I was reading, I remember that it says that the capacity of the language, yes, increase a lot when you are playing an instrument or when you are immersed in this area. Yes, and there are some parts of the brain that can be like that can grow, that can change. Yes, that are always changing when you are uh, playing an instrument because your memory grows, your capacity of the language. I don't know how they can be related at the same time, but I can experience this thing when I started learning this language, this English. I can notice that it was easier for me to learn the language, yes, than my classmates, yes, when I was seeing the English areas.
Okay, yeah, according to the reading, you develop some motor areas or areas in the brain related to motor skills and also to listening abilities. So you had the advantage on people who probably didn't develop those skills before starting learning French. Okay,
Yes, teacher.
Alexander. Sorry, Carlos.
No. Go on, teacher. No problem.
No.
Uh,
Expand on your idea.
Okay, teacher. So there are many studies about this. So I've seen that governments have improved or have spent a lot of money in these studies because they can see, yes, that children are immersed in a musical environment can uh, can have more advantages, yes, in the rest of their studies in their entire life. For example, if you see the Oriental culture, they always in their career they always learned they learned how to play an instrument, yes. They learned, for example, an sport, and they always see their normal studies in college or the schools. So because they know that they know that they can so that they can expands, yes, some memory, verbal memories, yes, and the capacity of the attention that they study. So I think that is a very important complement that a government here should apply in the most of the children. But at the beginning of the I don't know how to say this. As we read in the reading before, in the first at least in the first 5 years of age, yeah, they the child could have the experience to start learning an instrument. I think that the people that start at a very early age have an incredible capacity of learning.
Okay, well, what you mentioned is related to the idea that Diana already shared with us, which is that arts help to develop that part of the brain that is related to sensory and motor skills.
Yeah.
So if we work on, if we play an instrument, or if we practice a sport, or if we work on an art, we are working on one part of the brain that is related with sensory and motor skills. So when we learn a language, those parts of the brain are also necessary. And if a person has already learned to play an instrument, has an advantage on those who have not learned that ability. So that's why some activities when learning a language is easier for those people who have learned or who have developed those parts of the brain that are related with arts or with sports or with music or with any other art. Alexander, you
Teacher,
wanted to say?
Yes, teacher.
Yes, I was saying that if you expose children to music or movements, they can definitely improve their ability to learn. And what I'm saying is that children learn like in a natural way while they are moving, or they are playing an instrument. And everyone loves music, so they can all benefit, by using their creativity or by dancing, and they're enjoying the class. So basically, it's like they can develop their emotions, they can develop some skills, and while they're doing that, they can also improve their balance, coordination. Um, it's like I'll give you an example. In our English class, some students just they sit on a chair and they sit still all the time. So and they sit for an hour. So normally, like the longer you sit, the more your energy will drop, because your concentration will drop, and it's like they will tend to forget more what they're learning because they're not moving. So I think movement is an important. Um, I don't know if no, it's not an ability, but it's important in a class. It's like doing something, like playing music, play an instrument, but do something, move. I think that's really important also.
Okay, good. Belisario?
yes, teacher. I totally agree with all my classmates. So, music, I suppose, is similar to learning English because we need to take advantage of this plasticity in early ages that Carlos already mentioned. That in early ages, the capacity is like the brain of kids are powerful, and music is just by listening. So the most important of learning a language in early ages is listening. Is the first thing babies do. Like they storage information and associate. So then they start producing and the speaking. So it would be interested to, I don't know, like we are future teachers or teachers right now, to like start making a proposal like to focus on more in listening and speaking in a natural way, because many schools focus on just writing. I totally agree with Alexander because movement is important in kids, and it would be so interesting to implement like in some levels of elementary or for school, just focus on listening and speaking. I think would be great, and the results will be great, will be different than right now. That is more important than writing. Writing
Okay,
can come,
yes.
writing like reading and writing can come easily if kids dominate speaking and listening first.
All right. So what you mentioned is connected with the idea that people who play an instrument or know how to play an instrument have developed the ability to perceive different sounds. So when we learn a language, we also need to perceive different sounds of the foreign language. So that helps. I mean, developing the ability of playing an instrument helps to
Yes, teacher.
learn.
Teacher, another important tip.
Go ahead.
It's okay, teacher.
Carlos?
we as a parents or see, teacher, sorry, we as a parents, yes, or as teachers, we can impose, yes, that the child has to learn an instrument. Yes, for example, I cannot say to a child that he has to learn guitar or he has to learn piano or he has to learn violin. So the child himself has to choose the instrument that he wants to play. So this is very important that he can experience the instrument that he wants to. Because for example, in some studies, many children get frustrated because their own parents, yes, impose the instrument that they had to play, and the children sometimes they have to choose the correct instrument because not everybody has the same has the same
Likes.
can I say, yeah, have the same likes,
Likes.
yeah, likes differ, yes, it's very
Exactly. Your comment, your
important that the children it has to, yes.
yeah, your comment is related with to this neuromyth about the amount of information that children can store. So, as you mentioned, parents think that children under 7 years old can learn anything, and that's not the case. As you mentioned, if the child is not interested in playing guitar but is more interested in playing piano, or if the way the child was
Yes, teacher.
asked to approach to arts is not the way he likes or is not doesn't feel interested on that, is not going to learn. So it's not by exposing children to all the information or a lot of information or different activities that the child is going to learn. That they learn, as you mentioned, by for example, by playing or by presenting information in a way that is attractive for them.
Yes, we had to create a curiosity, yes, that they have a need.
Exactly. So
But
if if we can't have students feel curious about something, they will activate one part of the brain which is in charge of helping the students to pay attention and then to move that information to the parts that are related to memorization and learning. We mentioned that last time that everything goes to the limbic system, which is in charge of emotions first, and then if the person classifies that information as a useful, interesting, or attractive, then the information moves to the other parts that are in charge of memorization and learning, right?
Right,
Good.
teacher.
Any other information that you remember about neuromyths, other myths, or something that you want to complement about the ones that have been discussed so far?
teacher me, teacher.
Jaime?
I think that about the music, or according to the brain plasticity, you can improve your brain at any time of the life. About this, I remember that, for example, you can learn
Yes,
uh,
Fernand, Jaime?
you can learn English first, and then you can learn play guitar. But I think that there there isn't any difference. I think that this is a myth too.
Well, as you mentioned, we can learn because the brain is able to learn, or the person is able to learn anything at any time. But if the person finds that information interesting, attractive, useful, so the person can learn at any time in their life, or people can learn at
Yes,
any time in their lives. What happens is that the myth about music and playing an instrument is related to the abilities that people who practice a sport, who play an instrument, who works on any art, they develop some skills because the parts of the brain that are related to motor skills and sensory skills are developed when you work on any of those activities. And those parts of the brain are also related to learning a language. So if the person who plays an instrument an instrument develops the ability to perceive different sounds, the same person, if the person wants to learn a language later, it's going to be easier because that part of the brain has been developed in advance. It doesn't mean that a person that is older than 7 or is an adult cannot learn a language. The person can do it. However, if the person has developed those abilities related to arts, it's going to be easier for the person to learn the language, the foreign language. But as you mentioned, Jaime, the person is able to learn at any time if the information is useful, is interesting, is attractive for the person.
Yes, teacher. And according to the picture that is in on the screen, I remember that the lecturer said that any myth was brain, right brain, and left brain. Yes.
Yes,
And
what's
according
that
that,
myth about?
sorry, teacher.
Yeah, could you explain more the myth about left brain and right
Yes. Yes, teacher. Sometimes ago on the schools, people or teachers or any kind of people say that the students must be classified into right brain and left brain, and according to this, they can develop any activities for any kind of the brain or for any part of the brain. For example, I don't remember what activities belong to any part of the brain, but I remember that, for example, if you are good for a sport, you are related to right brain or left brain, or if you are good for play any instrument, you are related to the same way.
Exactly. So
But
one part of the brain is related to creativity, and the other part of the brain is related to analysis. So,
yes, teacher.
but what is exactly the myth about?
Teacher, the myth is the you can your brain need two part of the brain. The brain not only is not um, is not only work in one part of the brain. The brain work two hemispheres.
Exactly. So the
No?
brain that the left brain doesn't work in isolation of the right brain. They work together they are connected uh, with the callosium, which is in the middle of both parts. So they are when somebody does any activity, both parts are activated. It's not that one part gets quiet and the other works. Both work at the same time and are connected with the part that is in the middle. So, as you mentioned, the myth is related to the idea that if the person is good at sports, so the person should focus only on that activity and forget about the activities that are related to analysis. So it doesn't work in that way. And although the person could feel more attracted to information that is presented in a visual way, it doesn't mean that the person doesn't need to develop the other skills or or all the parts of the brain. So the brain works, the brain works, the right part of the brain works with the left part of the brain, and the idea that the person focuses his attention more if the information is presented in an audio way or in a visual way doesn't mean that the person doesn't need to develop the other part of the brain or the other ways or the analytic way or the creative way. So it's not a good idea to classify students as the ones that are good at sports or good at maths and just to focus a student on develop that ability because all the abilities are necessary.
But teacher, this is related to some activities that um, we put to the students, for example, I show to the students something about the topic is kinesthetic uh, or something like that, is good or bad idea related to this part.
No, it's a, as I said before, some people feel more attracted if the information is presented in a visual way, or if the information is presented through an audio, or if they are asked to move. However, it doesn't mean that the person only needs to develop one type of skill. Everybody needs to develop all the skills. So they should be exposed to all the different activities that are presented in different ways, because we cannot forget the other abilities that should also be developed. However, some we know, and it is true, and we have experienced that we are better on some people are better on arts, and some people are better on activities that are related to analysis. But it is not good to classify those people so that they focus only on developing that analytic skill or that creative skill, that they should be exposed to all types of activities that help them to develop all the skills. That's why it's not like some years ago, there was a proposal related to give more hours of teaching to maths and physics and chemistry and literature, and give less hours to sports and arts and music. That's not good.
Yeah.
People need to develop all the skills.
All the skills. Yes, teacher.
Yes,
Teacher,
no,
Who
go
wants to talk?
ahead.
Anna.
okay. Teacher, I have an example. I have godson. He is 2 years. Yes. In the first months, I will put music in English to sleep, with instrument like the guitar or with song. Among other, he's will fall asleep. In this way, and when he was 6 months old, he will play the organetta or piano. And whenever comes, he likes to put Biplin in English. And the moment he has 2 years, and he has identified the colors, identify the colors in English, and the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 1 and 2, 5. Yeah, he has pronounced these words. He he watch every day people in English, listening music in English. He likes English. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's 2 years. Teacher.
Okay, so he's 2 years and he was exposed to music, and he was exposed to an instrument, and
Yes.
he likes the way information was presented. See, if probably he didn't feel attracted to English or to other language because of the way the information was presented, so he wouldn't have developed that ability of recognizing colors. So it was the idea of exposing him to music and any musical instrument helped him to understand sounds in English, but it doesn't mean that the way to present information is not also important. It's very important. If as I mentioned in the previous encounter last week, if an adult is presented the information in a way or with a game that is uh, usually used for children, the adult is not going to feel any interest in learning that information.
Teacher,
The opposite happens with children. Fernando?
I have something to add about what you're saying. At the school where I work, that's the reason why they combine art with classes. For example, the kids, they have 2 hours of art. So for example, if they want to emphasize in music, they have to go to music class. If they want to emphasize into art, they go to art class during some time of the day. And it's because the brain, when you educate the brain with art and with language, the brain is going to learn faster than a normal class. For example, if I'm just teaching English, it's going to take longer to the kids to learn English than if they were taking English and music at the same time. So that's the reason why a lot of kids study at MISI at the same time that they study at school.
Okay, what happens in the example that you gave us is that students were not are exposed to all the classes. Yes, it's not that they were told only to study maths and physics and chemistry, but they are exposed to all the classes, and because of their likes, they can give more time to music than to, I guess, other art, which is in the somewhere at school.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean that the school is only is only giving the student the opportunity to develop analytic skills or creative skills. The
Yes.
school is offering both,
Yes.
and then the student is giving more time to one class that feels interested to.
Teacher Diana,
Belisario.
I would like to say the benefits of kids being exposed to different activities, and because in the future, that's why many people don't know what to study or what they are good at. They are good at something when they finish school. Like they don't know what to study. They don't know their abilities because they are not being exposed to different activities, and they haven't developed some skills. And that's the really importance of that. That's why. But I think that the activities, or for example, math in the school is not enough. Like that's why some people, oh my god, I forget, or like enroll their kids in extra activities or private classes or personal classes in order to develop these abilities or their skills, because sometimes it's not enough with the schools, or they get distracted so easily that they don't learn. Or
Yeah, I got your point. So
Teacher Diana.
what you share with us is that opposite to the example that Fernando gave us, uh, in his school, in the place where he works, students are exposed to to all the classes, but students have the opportunity to choose the class that they like the most and give more time to that class. Opposite to that, in some places, in some schools, the students don't have the opportunity to emphasize more on the class they like the most. So parents need to pay for those classes outside the school.
and sometimes some kids, they think they are bad at something, like they are not good at something, and when they are enrolled in those extra activities, they can find out that they were not bad, or sometimes there are some personal problems between the teacher and the student, the problems of disciplines that influence the learning process
Yes,
in
that's
in a negative way. So students think they are bad at something, or they don't have the capacity for learning something exactly.
Excuse me.
yeah, Diana.
Yeah, just to as a complement of the information that my colleagues are mentioning. Remember last year with teacher, there was another teacher called Joanna, and she showed us a video about education in Finland. I'm sure some of my classmates remember. And it was really interesting because he mentions the video that in Finland they spend more time teaching the kids arts or how to learn languages or social skills instead of, for example, learning geography or maths or history. And basically what all the teacher experience is that the brain of the kids, when they were when they were focused or when they were busy trying to play a sport or when they were focusing on how to play an instrument, the brain were kind of in a relaxed disposition, and then they were able to learn better numbers or maths. So the teachers, they decided to put as part of the curriculum more subjects like music, physical education, and they realized that it was more beneficial if the kids were focusing more of these subjects, and then they were able to learn easier when it was time to learn maths or history or geography. That was
Exactly.
amazing.
So that's
Have a look.
that's related to one part of the reading that mentions the need to create a relaxing atmosphere in class, and with Belisario's ideas on students that have difficulties in class to learn because the rapport with the teacher is not a good one. So if the teacher doesn't have a good relationship with students are not going to feel relaxed and are not going to feel interested in learning, which is kind of related to your idea, the idea that you just mentioned, Diana.
Yeah, thank you. That was the idea.
Other
Yeah.
other tip that was in the reading about helping students to learn is to give them time to answer questions before you actually ask them to talk. So sometimes we expect students to give us the answer right after we ask the question, and we don't give them the time to analyze information or work in groups and discuss with the peer. So that's important to give them time to think about the answer, uh, to promote that they ask the questions and not only the teacher.
Yeah.
Uh,
Or
to
another
give them,
thing,
yes,
to or second or third opportunities to present a like something like if they have a project to and they didn't do them, like okay, because like it's not about grade, it's about learning. So sometimes the students need a second or a third opportunity, and probably they will do great. But yeah, it's related to what you're saying, that they need time, and sometimes a third opportunity would be great for the students to show their potential.
right. So we can analyze the situation if the students were given not enough time to prepare for the task or to answer the question or to present the project. So we should think about the possibility of giving them more time, right?
Yeah.
Those of if you have analyzed the way those of you who are teachers, if you have analyzed the way you teach, and if you probably present information, explanations, um, I mean, if your talking time is more than the students' talking time, we need to change that. So we need to provide the students with problems, with something that can engage them with the topic, so they can give their opinions, they can infer their grammar rules, etc. Because if we are the ones that are talking and giving explanations all the time, they, they are going to learn less than if we give them the opportunity to infer information, to tell us what they know, um, to provide answers, to ask questions. So that's very important to analyze
Teacher
how we
Diana,
teach the class. Diana.
going back to your point about allowing time for the kids to ask questions or even giving them time to tell their problems or their ideas. Something really good as well that I read in the readings that you provide to us is something about like discovery for the kids. Like instead of the teacher always, when the teacher is teaching something, don't tell all the information, but ask questions and allow that the answer comes from the kids, no the teacher always telling everything. So basically, when you draw pictures on the wall, or when you do gestures, or when you create a different atmosphere in the class, that the students are able to find out the answer, the students' brain start to work and they become really creative, and the ideas should come from the students instead of us always telling them all the information. So when we do that, when we allow them to discover the information, the kids will always remember the answers.
Exactly.
And
So
and
that's
another point that I have learned from this wonderful institution, this university, that I never forget is first, like, two kids can share the information, or like in couples, before a presentation. Before always, before a presentation, they can talk among them to share the same information they're going to present, because it make them relax. They feel in a confidence, in a relaxed atmosphere, because it's among them. And then this is like a practicing, rehearsing before a presentation. So it's something I've learned from this great university.
Yeah,
that's
can I
important.
say something?
Felix.
Yeah, good evening. Well, I think all those opinions that given by Venezuela and other partners are very good. But it's important to keep in mind that always to be positive, the most important tool is creating a positive classroom atmosphere, I think, is for the teacher to be maybe positive role model, because the teacher is a model for the students, and also being a positive. That doesn't mean being happy all the time for me. Rather, being
Yes.
positive means approaching every issue with a positive, constructive attitude. Yeah, that the children feel good in class. For example, there are little ways to be positive, such as smiling in the morning when your student arrive, or during the class, change activity, because according to a study I did some years ago, um, many students are boring because in class, over the class, almost English class take 2 hours, and they find this so uh, boring and consistent, or maybe usual as every day. Yeah, they do not find another sense to awake that's interest to learn. Another maybe should also be positive when difficult issues arise. For example, to kids, for example, it is by using different didactics or resources. For example, if a scary news story comes, yeah, in class, they motivate it, or then, excuse me, talk about things the student can do to help, or discuss between them by using games, for example, to be nice. That is maybe a good beginning for me. Okay. This is my
Exactly.
opinion.
We discussed last week about the benefits of using games in the classroom because they have to relax the students and create a nice atmosphere. Or as you mentioned, smiling, having a positive attitude, giving the students different activities. All that helps to create a good rapport with them, and that's necessary if we want them to learn.
Yes,
That's
yes,
part.
teacher.
That's part of our task to create that atmosphere. Fernando.
Yes, that's true. Actually, what we do at school is that we have something that is called a smart board. Is where you connect your computer with a intelligent board, and you're able to do activities and let the kids play with the smart board. So every time you prepare an activity or a game, for example, the activities and with all the exercises, because they are able to stand up, move up and interact
Fernando.
with the board. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. So you were
Hello, teacher,
telling
can you
us
hear me?
that yes, you were
Okay.
telling us that you use a board or a game that helps them to move.
Yes, I was.
What else?
Yes.
It's the internet connection.
Out of the chair and interact with the board.
Okay, so that tool helps students to interact, to have a nice time, and also learn.
Yes, yes, and we play games with the smartboard too.
Just to mention another point after Fernando, according to what Fernando said. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Diana.
Okay, it's a lot of the information was related to pleasure and fun. So the reading brought the point that when a student or when a child is really enjoying something, they put more effort. For this reason, they learn more. So there was a lovely phrase that says that the goal of every teacher should be to find a way that the students have fun or enjoy what they are teaching. Because if the teacher find this way to make the students feel pleasure while they are learning, so they won they won the battle. They will have the attention of the students. So basically, we as teachers should try to create different methods so the students have fun and they enjoy what they are learning, which is what Fernando was saying. So when the students enjoy what they're learning, so they have the ability to learn quicker and they enjoy learning. It will be a pleasure or experience for them, not just like an academical task.
Very good, yes. So to approach to students according to their age, providing them with exercises that are attractive for their age is necessary. So we cannot teach adults the same way we teach adolescents or the same way we teach children. We need to find different things, right? Good.
Yes,
Yeah.
teacher.
you're totally right.
Yes.
Anna?
Yes, I use different activities in the class. For example, games, music, movies in English, and I do some crafts according to the theme, and the students are learning and enjoy.
Yes, great. So it's important to have in mind that, for example, when working with children, their attention span is short. So we need to change the activities every 10 minutes, more or less. Using those different tools that you use or activities will help them, and we need to make sure that all the tools or the activities are connected to the topic. If we are teaching students how to talk about their last vacation, so we can provide the students again a listening a video about the same topic.
Teacher.
So actually they can at the end, for example, talk about their last weekend activities, for example. Who wants to speak?
Me, teacher. Well, this is good for kids for first ages and maybe for primary. But in the case I was working with high schoolers, it's difficult to perform some activities with them because almost all the time, many staff bored them are not good for them. Do not catch their attention. It's difficult. I think it could be
in
the
high
same
school?
strategies. Yeah, but could be the same strategies, but it's a little bit complicated for me. Yeah, for high
Yes,
schoolers.
I understand it's
Yeah,
complicated.
all the
In
people
high
talk
school,
about
yes.
kids. Because kids, no, to say the truth, kids, you can manage the situation. Yeah, you have the situation you handle by the handle in your hands. In some cases, because they are little kids. Sometimes I consider it's different of this kind of students. Yeah,
Adolescents, yes.
for them to learn.
Belisario, do you work with adults?
Yeah,
Do you
go
teach
ahead.
adolescents, Belisario?
Not right now. I worked with them, but in an institute on Saturdays, but pre-teenagers, and it was great. But only on Saturdays, because when you work every day from Monday to Friday, it's different because they get tired, but I like working with teenagers. It's great. uh, I I've worked with at university, but not with English. Or yes, a long time ago. So I think we have to learn new things when we change like the community or the students. We need to learn new things, and we need to change the material, the methodology. It takes time, but
But exactly what type of activities did you use with your adolescents, students?
okay, it depends because in some schools or in some institutes they have videos and okay. Something important is like games. I used games. I search on the internet to create or adapt games. Sometimes like reading and presentations, or yes, or sometimes I love drilling, like teaching people how to say things two times. I'm good at this. Like people, I consider that it's really important when people are learning languages to repeat the same thing like 2 or 3 times. If
Okay, I would
they,
say, sorry to interrupt you. I would say
yeah,
that we mostly have students at any age to drill, have students at any age to listen, etc. But I would say that what is key is to choose the topic that is attractive for the age. So a child, I can teach English to children, but I need to present the information, for example, using comics or using songs or chants for children. And I need to present information in a different way to adolescents, and I need to choose a topic that they are attracted to, like music or like TV programs. I need um, to know the type of topics they talk about, so I can present information in a way that they feel connected to that topic. Because I mean, if we see we need to teach like all the tenses at any age, but the topic that we choose to teach the tense is key. So if I need to have students, children, to talk about their past experiences, I can't provide them with the video about children talking about the activities they did last weekend. Like for example, play soccer or go swimming or share time with their families. Well, I cannot use the same video with adolescents because they are not going to feel connected with that information. So I need to choose a different topic about, a different video about adolescents talking um, talking about the activities they did last week, but this time it will be like something like listening to music, going to a concert, or watching a movie that is playing recently, etc. So,
Teacher
uh,
Diana, in addition to your comments about teaching teenagers successfully, when we find out first what their interests are, I think we can plan our lesson plans around the topics they like. For example, what you just mentioned, if we know, for example, they like superhero movies, so we can get some information on the internet about ESL language, about superheroes, so they will be interested. Or for example, like you mentioned, if they like music or whatever topic they like. But another thing is to find topics that are relevant to their adolescent life. For example, something that they feel connected with, something that they are having experience with, and they will be able to pay attention because it's happening to them in their life.
exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly that's what is important. Fernando, you raise your hand.
Yes, there's something funny about what Diana is saying, and I agree with her. When you find out what they like or why they don't like, you try to take that way in order to make them understand better what you're trying to explain. And also, I wanted to say something about praise students. In my grade, we have special cases. There are two students which they are having a hard time time learning English. So what we normally do, we have to give them the instructions in English, of course, but they ask us to praise every single achievement they have. For example, they wrote in a correct way the. So if they are able to write it correct, we have to praise every single thing they do, even if it's minimum. So that's really important for a kid, for a student. If you praise what they do, even if it's minimum, if it's really small, you have to praise what they do because they feel that they are taking like a good way of learning.
Right, that's very important too. Um, somebody else wants to add
Yes, teacher.
information about
That's
that?
me, Alex.
Alexander?
You know, I don't really like working with kids because most of my life I have worked just with adults. And one of the things that I always tell them is like the best way to avoid like boredom, is to choose materials that is compelling to them. And by saying compelling, I mean extremely, extremely interesting. Like in my case, when we work on reading or listening, we work the two skills at the same time. Like one way is to learn something that you love in English. For example, if you love romance novels in Spanish, try to get them in English. You can find the audiobooks also and listen to them every day. Also, if you love business, I mean, I'm just talking about like classes with adults because I'm not really familiar with classes with kids. So if they love business, so they try to learn about business in English. It's like I always tell them to use English as a means of learning English. Sorry, as a means of learning other knowledge and other skills. Because the more you focus on this compelling content, it will be easier for them to memorize things because they read what they like, what is compelling to them. So
Exactly.
that's
So this
right.
happens with the same that you do with adults happens with children. So, for example, if you're teaching 9 years old how to talk about a third person, maybe the basic information. For example, they nowadays they like to or they know about different YouTubers. So if you want to have a student's attention, you could present information about a YouTuber, so that the task could be to have students write a very short paragraph about the YouTuber they know more. So like the nationality, the age, like the topic they talk about in their videos. That's gonna be more interesting for them than presenting information about, for example, um, let's say a famous writer from a different country. Yes, so we need to try to find out our students' interest so that we can plan the lesson in a way that we can catch our students' attention. Um, because that's the way everybody learns. So the same that you do with adults, Alexander, that's what we have to do with children or adolescents. Find out their topics of their interest so we can plan the classes.
Exactly.
Teacher, I have a question related to the information Alexander have shared. Because I consider the most difficult working with adults is when they don't know how to pronounce words correctly. So I would like him to share what he does when it happens, when he has a group of adults and there are some ones who don't know how to pronounce words properly. I think
Well,
it does. Uh-huh.
yeah, it's just that I'm usually working with B1, B2, or C1, C2, and I always tell them not to learn English um, just by learning words. I always tell them to learn by by learning
Context.
phrases, like like learning phrases. Because I mean, if you learn a phrase, you're learning grammar at the same time. But it's a lot more difficult if you learn word by word, if you're learning it by heart, because
Yes.
you're gonna start thinking of
Yeah,
like
but I got another question. Do you have or have you have the students we have difficulty pronouncing words? Because with adults it's more difficult.
Yeah, and that is hard. So one thing that I always do is like repetition, repetition, and put the word that they're having trouble with to put that word in context. That's what we do usually.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
Good. Anyone else wants to add like a strategy, wants to share a strategy to help students improve on their pronunciation?
Teacher, I think that there is an important part of the reading. I think it's one of the most important part of the reading that says that
What's that about?
The most powerful tool of in the process of the reading.
We can't hear you, Carlos.
Teacher, I would like to say something after Carlos.
Or before him.
Juanita, please go ahead because we can't hear Carlos. Carlos, could you please type your comment? Juanita.
Okay, so I was going to say that we can build lessons around music lyrics because everybody enjoys music, so the students will enjoy the lessons if we build them around music lyrics. And we can also build lessons around music to learn grammar and vocabulary. So in that case, we can do activities like fill the gaps and create stories around the lyrics.
You are right. So most of the students like music. So building a lesson on a song, it's a good idea.
Oh, teacher, just following Juanita's point because that point is excellent. I was thinking that Juanita was talking about building lessons around lyrics or music. So that's an excellent idea, an excellent opportunity to introduce students slangs or colloquialisms. So and expressions, because in English we have lots of expressions, street language. So students will be able to make a difference or to see the clear difference between like formal language and informal or colloquialisms. So we can do a lot of things around the lyrics lessons, lessons to do with music. And it could even be grammar or vocabulary like Juanita mentioned.
Okay, so we can, if we build a lesson on music or on lyrics, we can do many things about the lyrics or the message of the song or the phrases, phrasal verbs or colloquial words or slang that are presented in the lyrics. So that's a way to approach, for example, the topic of colloquial words or slangs. Anybody have a question or a comment before we finish?
Teacher, I would like to say something about praise students, not only because of their learning, but also because of their discipline. Sometimes we say to a student to be quiet or something, and sometimes they don't obey. I'm talking about kids or teenagers, and sometimes we have to do it like sternly, and they change. And for example, if we have like a reward, it's again or with technology. So if we see or with teachers we see like a little change, we also have to praise that, like at the end of the class. Oh, I see that your behavior is better, so you can at the end of the class, like little time, you can play, so it will help with the discipline as well.
Okay, games are important. When we start a class, we usually have a warm-up activity so we can have students' attention. And if we see the students are not they are not focusing their attention after some time. So we need to stop and do something like a game or like having them move or like an exercise so we can focus the students' attention again.
Yes, teacher.
Okay, good. Any other comment or question before we finish?
It's great to share everyone's ideas because obviously what everybody is doing in their classes, in their own classes, is great to share all those ideas because I think sometimes we get bored to teach the same way. So it's nice that we are able to share ideas.
Right, so some of you have had experiences with different types of students in different places, in different schools or universities or other places. So it is very enriching to listen to your experiences. And as you mentioned, Diana, to have other activities to listen to other activities that have worked so that it can help us to use them in the places where we work. I'm going to read Alexander's comments. He wrote, it's much better if you learn a phrase. It's easy whenever you listen to someone speaking real English, and when you hear a new word, you write it down. Or when you read a story and you see a new word, you write it down. You don't want to just write down that word. You want to write down the whole phrase or sentence that's in it. Okay, that's like other activity that we could have students work on if we want them to learn new vocabulary. Any other comment or question?
Yeah, talking about what Diana Jeff has said, that is great, sharing ideas, and this is a very great group, and we are able to listen to different accents and different ideas. It's wonderful. It's just wonderful for us as teachers or future teachers. And you're a great teacher, Diana.
I have I have I have to agree with Belisario and Diana. It has been a great experience. I mean, I love the way we learn. But also, I would like to add something else. If we wouldn't have to grade kids, things would be better. Sadly, we live in a world where everything is based in grades. So the idea is try to let the kids have fun when they learn English.
Mm.
That's very important, Fernando. So it's difficult if the place where we work has a traditional system, but we need to remember that we have in front people with different likes and needs, and that we should not focus our attention only on grades, but on helping them learn something. And before learning something, we need to see if they are really in the mood of learning, or if we need to do something that we can focus their attention so they are able to learn.
So I think Fernando is talking about personalized classes that they are not related to grades, just learning real English. Like probably he's talking about that.
But in those classes, Belisario, because if they are learning, it's because they need a grade, right? So even those classes where you have to teach personalized lessons, sadly, they're looking for a grade in an institute or university. You know what I mean?
Yes, it depends the place.
Yeah, so I understand your point, Fernando. We usually we have or we work in places where we have traditional education, we have the
Yes.
grade system, the traditional grade system, but we need also to have in mind that we need to help students learn something and not just like planning a class to grade students and that's it. But to be aware of the fact that we need to help students learn something, but also that they have different likes, they have different needs. They are not in the mood of learning uh, today, but tomorrow they have a different attitude. So that's why it's not easy, right? So we need to have in mind many things.
Yes, working in the schools, oh, it's really hard. Even when there are many students in the classroom. Oh my God! So sometimes working at university or in institutes, it's better. Like it's more relaxed. Some teachers don't like working in the schools because of that. Too much work, and grades is the most important. Oh my God!
Well, and then
Something that I have found.
we don't need to teach them like behavior because they are supposed to know how to behave. But teaching at schools is difficult because we don't only have to teach English, but we also need to teach behavior, values, etc.
Yes. Oh my God.
Okay, good. So I'm going to stop the encounter now. I appreciate your participation, your comments, all the information we shared tonight. If you have any question, please email me. We will have another encounter next week. Fernando, you have a question?
Yes, I was wondering when are you getting the grades for the last project?
Yeah, I'm planning to upload the grades of the last activities, the last tasks by Sunday.
Okay, teacher, thank you very much.
But anyway, I email you when I have uploaded them to the virtual room.
And how many encounters are left, teacher? Excuse me.
If I'm not wrong, 2. If I'm not wrong, I need to check.
And weeks with task 2 or just 1?
1 task more.
Great.
Yeah.
I would like to thank you and all my classmates for this time for sharing ideas and everything, your knowledge. It's great.
Yeah, thank you all for the information you shared tonight.
Thank you too.
Teacher.
This is very helpful.
Thank you, teacher. Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
You.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.